Hello and welcome to Newspaper Review on High Impact Television. My name is Godtime David. I hope you had an amazing night rest, and I hope you also started your morning with us by joining tea or coffee. But this morning, we will be walking you through stories making rounds on front pages of newspapers in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. But before we take a deep look at stories making rounds on front pages of newspapers this morning, the conversation of the meeting or the outcome of the meeting with the Southern governors and Governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, there has been updates on that meeting, as a few highlights of that meeting includes reaffirming their commitment to building Nigeria and Nigeria's economy. Also, they talked about security of Nigeria, and that has to do with state policing. Also, they talked about the PIB, which has become controversial as Senate this morning took a swipe and also is not even taking a back step, or is not even considering the 5% that has been proposed by the Southern governors. We also have on that list the rejection of the removal of the electronic transmission of the election results from Electoral Act. That and many more stories made highlights at the meeting on Monday. The highlights and the updates of the stories, it's still going to be on the front burners between today and tomorrow, and let's see what Monday has to offer. In the meantime, we have our guest joining us from Abuja, Nigeria, and his name is Fred Eziako. He's a legal practitioner. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. To be with you.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin with the Punch newspaper this morning, and the story making rounds on the front page of almost all newspapers is the results or the highlights that came out of the meeting that was held in Lagos State on Monday with the South governors. That meeting was held with Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Now, this morning we're getting reports that the Senate is saying that they do not care about the outcome of that meeting. They would still maintain their stance on the 3% of the PIB. Now, let's begin with that 3%. What do you think about the stance of the Senate regards this matter?
Well, I didn't hear much of your question, but the little I got is that the meeting of the Southern Governors Forum was one that was welcome. Of course, you recall that the Northern Governors have been holding their meetings, and the Southern Governors as well have been expected to keep holding meetings periodically to advance the interests of the South. What it simply shows is that the polity, the merger between the Northern and Southern Protectorate that happened in 1914, this is the time to demerge because that marriage obviously has not worked. It has proved that it has not worked. The country called Nigeria has not been cemented, has not fused into one. The North and South are obviously different laws operating, different culture, different everything. When you have the Sharia law in the North, you don't have that in the South. When you have the criminal code in the South, you have a penal code in the North. In the same country, we cannot be operating two different laws. So this is time for anybody to begin to think of the merger between the two entities. Now, the Southern governors met, and then the issue of PIB and several other issues came into the picture.
Well, let's begin, if I may, you didn't get my question, so let's begin with the PIB. Now, Senate is coming out to say that they do not care about the outcome, and they still maintain their stance on the PIB of 3%. So what do you think about the stance of the Senate regards this?
The stand of the Senate is a reflection of legislature working against the yearnings of the people. And it is also a reflection of the lopsidedness in the number of representatives and the senators in the North, between the North and the South, as a result of the lopsidedness in the number of states between the North and the South. This is deeply entrenched in the polity. And the states cannot say they don't care about the yearnings of the South because the oil that they are talking about, it comes from the South. And of course, it is very unfair that the oil hosting community will be given a mere 3% when they there is massive degradation of the environment, and then the life of the people who actually own the oil under their soil is not made better. There's nowhere in the world where you deny somebody the God-given right, and then even rub it and flaunt the denial in his face. And that is why we begin to talk about true fiscal federalism, because the man in Niger Delta does not benefit from the gold in Zamfara. That does he take the solid mineral in Nasarawa? So why would the petroleum in the Niger Delta be now benefit everybody in the country, mostly in the north, and that the solid minerals and the other natural resources in the north will be of zero benefit to the man in Niger Delta? These are lopsidedness, and these are issues of injustice and unfairness that fuel agitation and fuel lack of cohesion in the country. So the Senate is very insensitive, and such insensitivity does not cover well for democratic union in the country.
But Marison Zako, now this 3% has been described by the Southerners as selfish from the Senate. Do you agree with that school of thought, that it is selfish for them to have given 3% as against 5%? Because even the 5%, they are saying the 5% is they have to manage the 5%. So they are describing it as selfish coming from the Senate. Do you agree with that?
Anybody who calls the Niger Delta request of 5% selfish is not being fair at all. It's a very reckless statement. As a matter of fact, the 5% to host community is not even enough. I expected, I for one, and most reasonable people expected that they should be giving 10%. I mean, 10% is not 10% of the whole production. 10% is 10% after all expenses, and is even a fraction of the production. Meanwhile, the same Senate is looking for 30% for the oil trough basin, where they want to continue to explore oil where oil does not exist in commercial quantity. That is hypocrisy. And for anybody to say that the yearning of Niger Deltans for 5% is selfish, the person is really not being fair at all. And that should be reversed. We should be talking about 10% for host community.
All right, let's move away from that to another story, still on the outcome of the meeting. Let's talk about the security, because they had a conversation centering or bordering around security. And I saw in that report that by September 1st, there would have been a conclusion on state policing. Now, let's quickly talk about predictions. The federal government has actually not assented to state policing. They have a deadline. September 1st, they would have a conclusion. What do you foresee when this happens and the federal government does not give a go-ahead?
Well, I understand that the September 1st deadline is for all southern states to pass the anti-open grazing law. And of course, that is the way to go. We cannot begin to talk about grazing of animals moving from north to south when we have opportunity of animal husbandry in the modern way, which is ranching. So the southern governors have been giving kudos for that resolution, and I believe that such resolution should be carried through and ensure that open grazing is outlawed in all southern part of Nigeria. And it is expected that there has to be a rapprochement between the north and the south, so that there will be understanding and they will continue to coexist in mutual respect and unity. And of course, the deadline is important because there has to be timeline to everything. And then if the federal government that is supposed to be the anchor of unity of all nationalities in Nigeria is expected to really take a cue to that and give effect to the fact that we need modern animal husbandry, which is ranching, over and against this movement of cows and cattle all over the place, causing problem, insecurity, and all manner of challenges. So I think the southern governors are right in that direction. And most other issues that they resolve in their meeting.
Well, before we move away from that, let's talk about the resolution. What do you think can be done to avert what you've just foreseen? What do you think can be done to avert it? Because if by September 1st nothing is done and the southern governors are hell-bent on, or are bent rather, on doing what they have to do to keep their communities safe, what do you think can be done between the federal government and the state governments to avert rancor?
Well, the federal government is expected to cooperate and respect the opinions of the southern governors. The southern governors are said to be chief security officers of their state. If you take a man, the chief security officer of his state, and the man now brings out measures and policies and programs that will enhance security of his state, why would you now go against that? What has that policy or that program or pronouncement, how has it hurt, how has it affected adversely the animal husbandry in the north? It does not in any way. So if the government goes against the resolution of the southern governors, then the federal government is stoking embers of discord and causing problems in the country. What do we expect is that federal government should cooperate with southern governors and encourage the northern governors to also think in the same direction and ensure that animal husbandry is done in a manner that will not create further problems for Nigeria. The country is going through a lot of challenges. So anything that is done to eliminate such challenges today will be most welcome.
All right, Barrister Nzako, before I let you off the hook this morning, this one is on INEC. It says, still the highlights of the meeting, they reject the removal of the electronic transmission of the election result from Electoral Act. Now, you saw this part of the story. As a legal practitioner, how does this make you feel?
Anybody who works or speaks against electronic transfer of result is an enemy of Nigeria, is an enemy of Nigerian democracy, is an enemy of the people. We have always said times and times over that we have to ensure that the process of selection or election of leaders in Nigeria is made top-notch, such that the will of the people must always prevail at all times, so that the ballot is the determinant of who becomes a leader at any level in the country. And it has been found out, obviously without argument, that one of the means of ensuring credibility of our electoral process is to deploy electronic means of transmission of results. This has been done in many countries of the world, so we are not inventing the wheel. Rather, we are only trying to do what is right to ensure that the electoral process goes well. So anybody who goes against electronic transmission of results can be marked immediately as anti-democracy and anti the voices and the opinions of the people. That is the way to go. INEC has experimented that and has come out with a resolution that nothing can beat that. Nothing can equate that. So why would we begin to go around, go through manual transmission of results, which is filled with discrepancies and fraud, when electronic transmission will do us good? Are we not interested in making progress? Must we retrogress at all times? Must we fight on every issue? And I think that the time to really act and behave well is now. And as we approach 2023, we want to hope and believe that the electronic transmission should be made a permanent system of our electoral process. And that is why it is important that it be etched in our electoral laws. I don't expect that any Nigerian will kick against this policy.
Well, Barrister Nzako, I know that the stories, that the results of what happened on Monday, the results of the meeting would keep producing updates up until most of the stories die down. I must thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Many thanks.
Thank you. All right, that was Barrister Nzako Fred, all the way from Abuja, joining us. Thank you for joining us this morning. But let's continue with other stories and we'll take a look away from Nigeria. The Star newspaper says Raila sets the stage for 2022 duel with Ruto. The ODM boss has left no doubt that he will be in the ballot in 2022. Vera Sidika predicted her pregnancy 3 years ago. That's an article. Lusaka seeks out of court settlement in paternity case. Clergy urge Uhuru Kenyatta to postpone BBI until after 2022 elections. Uhuru Raila Ruto men face off over my Tangi removal plot. Gynecologist spiked my drink, made me pregnant. That's an allegation coming from a nurse. Principals calls for travel restriction as schools close. Let's still eat the government. That is coming from a member of parliament. Also, member of parliament renew bid for fat retirement perks. Zuma hands himself in South African police. Why DJ Mos opted for vastonomy. Now let's take the story of Raila setting a stage for 2022 with Ruto. Now, opposition chief Raila Odinga has set the stage for a grueling duel with Deputy President William Ruto and released snippets of his 2022 blueprint that will anchor his presidential run. Over the last few weeks, Raila is going flat out to reawaken his political bastions and conquer new territory as he angles for the top job with or without the Building Bridges initiative. Apparently, the BBI has, or he's trying to move the BBI to 2022 after the elections. That's as much we can take this morning on Newspaper Review. I'd like to appreciate you for giving us your time and joining us this morning on Newspaper Review. Also like to appreciate Fred Nzako, legal practitioner, for joining us this morning on the review. Thank you so much. My name is Godstime David, and don't you go away. Tea or coffee continues.